for agents that are earlier in the process right now, don't be discouraged. Keep chipping away at your craft. Keep looking for that niche in your market that has not been necessarily put out there yet.
This is The Agent Goldmine, where you'll find real talk, shit talk, and ambition. We're here to build real businesses and be more than your average agent. We want to know what the killers are actually doing within their businesses, the reality of it. All tactical, no fluff. So we're here to find out. Please share and enjoy.
Welcome back to The Agent Goldmine. Today we have Brandon Greenplate on the show. And listeners, this one is for you if you are interested in working with investors in the short-term rental space or doing some investment property / luxury home. So Brandon, welcome.
Thank you so much, Shelby. So glad to be here. And Allie, good to be here with you as well.
Yeah, super nice to meet you. And I want to go into your stats. So you're out in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. You focus on short-term rentals, investment properties, luxury homes, and you've been an agent for 4 to 5 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, about 4 to 5 years down here in Hilton Head, little resort town, southernmost part of South Carolina.
Southernmost part. Nice. You have done over 100 million in sales, 120 closings. Just in 2023 so far, where we just started August here, you've done almost 30 closings, 25 in volume, and you are a solo agent with an admin, and you just hired your first agent who happens to be your brother. So you're transitioning to a team environment. So yeah,
yep,
we're going to get into
rock and rolling.
Hell yeah. I want to get into like starting the team, like what made you decide. Shelby's like cracking up in the back scenes. What made you decide like to start growing the team, but focusing also on the short-term rental stuff. So I want to take it from the very beginning. Why become a realtor, and what was your first transaction like? Like, how did you find them?
Yeah,
all of the things.
Absolutely. And I always knew I was a little unorthodox. I never really wanted to work for somebody. Every agent says that, right? Until you really get in the business. But Clemson University, when I was finishing up school, I was jet ski tour guide for 2 summers down on the island. Last 2 summers, I said, I need to get something on my resume. Friend of a friend introduced me to the broker in charge that I'm actually working with now, paid for my license, got my foot in the door. And when I graduated, was just in the position of saying, I've got some places to stay down here. I'm going to give it 110% and we're going to see what the heck happens. Right. So, nothing happens overnight in real estate. It took about maybe 6-9 months to kind of get it, a few deals rolling. My first deal was just a little one, found the buyer, found what they were looking for, a lot of inventory on the market at the time, and completely faked it for the first deal. I had no idea what I was doing. But, it's like a snowball. Once you start to get one, you build some confidence, next one. So, it was one of those things, to answer your question, always knew I was going to go into something entrepreneurial, and you don't really know how entrepreneurial real estate is until you really get into it, because your operations, your marketing, your sales, it goes on and on. And then, after I decided I was going to commit 100%, took a little bit of time, was patient with it a little bit, even though it struggled, staying patient. And, once the first deal rolled in, then the second, then the third, I was like, I'm here, I can do this. And the rest is history.
Dude, I love how you said that most people don't realize how wow, that word is hard. Entrepreneurial. Real estate is, dude, because it's so true. It's like most agents, when they're getting into the industry, don't know that they're actually signing on to be a business owner. And like you said, there's this whole piece of the business for the marketing and the whole piece of the business for sales and for all of these different aspects that when you're getting your license, half of you is like, oh, I just have to open a door, right? And show someone a house, and then it closes and I get a commission, right? Woo! So very cool that you had that mindset kind of from the beginning. Question, your first deal that, by the way, no one knows what they're doing in the beginning. So for sure, not alone. Was it already a short-term rental? Like, what was the actual first closing, or how did you get into the short-term rental space?
Yeah, great question. So the first one was not. It was just a residential condo buyer here on the island. To back up a little bit, while I was interning at the company I'm with right now, Hilton Head Properties, Realty and Rentals, I kind of did a little bit with the rental side, right? Just as much as the real estate while I was interning. So it gave me that background on what's renting for what, right? What pulls in the most amount? What is the most consistent? So that kind of laid the foundation onto what eventually got me into the short term. And then I realized, it's a lot easier to sell a deal to an investor because they're not emotional as long as the numbers work, right? So I'm not out there and people aren't nitpicking on things that they're emotionally caring about as long as the numbers work. And I took the background that I had from the rental side of the company and understanding what rents, what doesn't, and created a cash flow pro forma with the help of my broker and went through and just said, what's an area here that I could get really passionate about as far as a niche goes? And nobody's really dug themselves into, right? There's the ocean broker here. You've got all these luxury stuff. Everybody says they're an investment friendly realtor, but nobody really dug deep into it. And then once I started to buy properties and I started to walk in the shoes of these investors, I really knew what to look for. I really knew, the contractors to connect my clients with. And, one thing started leading to another. And before you know it, I'm getting phone calls saying, hey, so-and-so said that you're great with finding investment properties. And I kind of ran with it, right? And continued to practice what I preach with buying real estate and continuing to sell it in that capacity.
Okay, totally makes sense. Question about you said you had experience with the Hilton Head real estate and rentals, right? So do they manage short-term and long-term rentals?
Just short term. So it's a real estate
Okay.
brokerage, and then it's a boutique brokerage, and then an in-house rental management company. So my broker, Robbie Bunting, great guy, has been doing it here since, 1985 and started this business in 2012. But it's great business for him and people listening. When you pair up a parallel type business with your real estate firm, it can lead to a lot of new business, right? Because, for example, he's getting people that are renting that have had it on the rental market for a while that say, hey, I want to sell. You're managing my rentals. Can you help me sell it too? So I think it's pretty cool how they aligned with parallel businesses that kind of feed each other.
For sure. So that brokerage has been doing short-term rentals since 2012, or was that further down the road?
Short-term rentals, and they started the property management company, no long terms, just short terms, and then a full capacity real estate brokerage on top of that.
Okay, how does that work with because I know you dabbled around in the beginning, but now you're pretty niched into the short-term rental space. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so is there like some sort of a deal that's worked out between like management or most of your clients self-managing? Like how does that work?
Yeah, it really depends. Every time I'm dealing with somebody that is an investor, a lot of times they don't even know their own goals. So as an agent, it's my job to really figure out, okay, I ask them, it's like a dial, right? On one side, you have pure investment, right? They don't want to use it. They don't care about what it looks like as long as the numbers work. On the other side, you have the lifestyle use of a property, right? I don't want to rent it. I just want to use it and enjoy it. A lot of people fall in that middle, right? Where they want to buy property, enjoy it with their family, friends, have a place to come down and use, and then use the rental income to offset their expenses. So from the start, it's really kind of diving in and saying, all right, what really do you want? I had a guy one time that's like, Brandon, I'm just totally investment. And then, I'm walking around Harbor Town, which is like the big tourist thing down here. And I see him at 4th of July weekend. I see my guy that I was having that conversation with like 3 months earlier, walking around in Harbor Town on the busiest week of the year. Like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I love it. I can't stay away from it. Right. My family loves it. My kids love it. So it's kind of from the start determining which direction they want to go. And then if they are pure investment, right, for the rental management company and rental management companies in a whole, they're a great turnkey solution to kind of find that happy medium where you want to, offset your expenses, not deal with it. If you're going purely investment, it's probably more ideal to go self-managed route. And there's different ways to maximize that revenue, given that, you're in charge of your own listing, you can control the prices more, so on and so forth. But if you're just looking to offset your expenses and not deal with anything, the rental management company is a great way to do it. I don't have anything in-house with them as far as, what I get or vice versa, but it's just a great resource to have, right? To have a property manager on standby. And, it just depends on what the client's needs and wants are. And that's kind of how I determine which direction to take them.
How was it that you got plugged into into this community before you started getting licensed again?
Yeah, great question. So family came down here. So Hilton Head's the second biggest island on the East Coast, next to Long Island, New York, 40,000 residents, 3.5 million visitors a year. Those 3.5 million visitors generate over $1 billion annually for our local economy, our little 12-mile island that gives us these big town amenities. So Hilton Head's not that old. Sea Pines was actually the first land planned resort unit development ever in the country. In the late 50s, it opened. But anyway, my parents came here for their honeymoon in the 80s, came back every year, bought a house or condo in 2000. And then it was kind of a second home for us. We'd come down, and then originally I'm from Pennsylvania. So I was spending my summer, or I was going to Clemson University, and then just said, hey, I'm going to get in-state residency and live down at the beach in Hilton Head with some friends of mine. And, I really got to know people, the community, so on and so forth from doing that. And then by the time I graduated, my parents did build a house down here. They kind of moved down separately. So we separately made our ways down here, and we've been coming for a long time.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So that's how you got plugged into the real estate and rentals first. Therefore, having a community of also other investors that actually have already invested. Because right off the bat, when you said, "Hey, I would rather work with investors," not every agent thinks that way. A lot of agents are trying to work with first time investors that are too scared to pull the trigger, because investors don't have to buy.
Yep.
So it's,
Yep.
yeah, you either have the investor type that is too scared to pull the trigger and it's actually a waste of the agent's time, or agents or investors that have already invested know what they're doing. They know their criteria better than any, it doesn't even really matter at some point if they even have an investor agent, I think, because they know what they want.
Exactly. Exactly. And the other beautiful thing about Hilton Head, which makes investing here great and why people continue to come back, is you see a lot of these horror stories right now with these short-term rentals, right? Like in
Yeah.
Dallas, they're not allowing in the residential neighborhood, so on and so forth. You want to focus as a buyer, right? And why I like working this market on areas that were created for resort, right? So Hilton Head was an area that was created for tourism. Half of the island will forever allow short-term rentals. The other half won't. It's not going anywhere. So investors have a big sense of security here, which keeps them coming back. And again, we're a limited supply commodity. So on top of just like returns, the appreciation you see here long-term is huge. So there's a lot of factors that go into this market that make it stand out and make it more appealing. But yeah, there's some people that, the more you do it and the more you're selling, working with these people, who the tire kickers are. And, you kind of kick them to the side from the start because we're busy people. We don't have time for that.
Thank you for listening. Out of respect for your time, we want to make this show as valuable as possible for you. So if you have any feedback on how we can improve, please let us know. DM us at Allie the Agent and The Shelby Show. Yeah. No, that's a distinction that a lot of new agents need to make early on. A lot of
Yep.
people will, because they have no other clients. So they're like, oh, well, let me focus on these couple of maybes. And those maybes never turn out. So they're doing all this extra work, free work for no commission at the end of the day. Curious what's the typical percentage rate for property managers for short terms out there?
Yep. Typicals 15 to 20% here. And, you know, again, it comes back to what I was saying earlier about if you're really trying to squeeze every dollar out, you've got to leverage local relationships and technology to automate that self-managing process from anywhere. So I've kind of created a system that I use for my properties here on the island for those kinds of people that I share with them, right? And help them maximize their revenues because I know what works. I have the right people in the right places, so on and so forth. So almost kind of created a system that, sometimes I'll charge people for a setup cost or something like that because it is time involved. And you got to think, from a rental management company, if you're throwing it on, it's doing $100,000 a year. That's 20 grand every year if it's 20%. If you pay 10 grand one time for a setup fee that's going to perform higher, it makes a lot of sense. So it just depends. Average 15 to 20% from a standard rental management company on the island to answer your question.
I like that. So can you go into more about what the setup cost is and what else you offer aside from every other just plain vanilla realtor? Since you're focusing on the short term, what else do you offer on top of the setup cost, what you do for them that make you stand out?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of different things I offer compared to other agents. And again, it's the experience part, but looking a little more into that self-managed automated process, you're looking at photography, you're looking at copy, you're looking at setting up an Airbnb, a VRBO page for for each of the channels. And then you have a channel manager, right? You guys have short-term rentals, so like a guestie or something that syncs the calendars together, as well as automates the messaging. So I put the automated messaging in there. And then on top of that, dynamic pricing syncs to that channel manager. And then the secret sauce down here is this cleaning company that is really a niche, if I've ever seen one, where they will sync to your Airbnb and VRBO accounts, kind of like a resort cleaning. and automate the cleaning process, meaning every time something gets booked, every time a reservation changes, they automatically reschedule it. They automatically do the linens, toiletries, clean, inspection, upload pictures to a portal, and then charge you a per clean fee that you're then passing on to the guests on the front end. They act as an a la carte company, meaning if there is a hurricane coming and you need to move your furniture off the back porch, they'll go do it. They'll charge you, right? You got a drain that's clogged. They'll go over, they'll take care of it. They'll charge you. So that's kind of the boots on the ground that people are missing and afraid of. And I've got that guy doing 6 of my properties and probably have referred him to over 50 people that I've worked with.
And how is it automated?
I mean, it's 95% automated, from the auto messaging to the pricing to the cleans, all automated, right? Every once in a while, you'll get some messages saying, oh, what's this? What's that? And you'll have to respond to those. But the big stuff like the cleans, the, general messaging and the pricing is all automated. And you got to check it every once in a while, make sure everything's connected correctly, so on and so forth. But it takes 90% of the work out of it.
Yeah, I was thinking about turnover BMD. BMB, have you heard of it? Turnover?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's what we used. And so I originally, my short-term rentals were in the same city that I was in. And then I moved. And my biggest struggle for sure is exactly what you were talking about, where clients are scared of the lack of boots on ground. Like, who is the one who's actually, inspecting and verifying, and because it's so easy to lie through photos. And property managers do it all the time. And so ultimately, like, I couldn't solve that problem. And the cleaners, even though we had someone who was like, hey, I'm overseeing my cleaners, I know they're doing a good job, the reviews from the guests and the feedback when they walked in said otherwise consistently, and could not solve that problem. So the fact that you're able to solve it is really cool. And actually, Allie, let's finish, because I wanted to go back and ask a different question, but like the system setup. Okay, so we have you listed all the stuff, the photography, the copy, the Airbnb pages, automated messaging, all that stuff. So like in theory, you help these, people run numbers, put the deal together, and then they close on the property, and you do this setup fee. So that way from there on out, they are most of your clients not local?
Yeah, I would say of the 120 deals I've closed, probably 60 of them have been virtual, right? It's something where I'll meet people down here, we'll establish a relationship, and then the best properties sell quick. So if they're not here, this being a vacation destination, I am the first one over there for the right property for when it comes up. I'm videotaping it, I'm FaceTiming them, and then, kind of communicating with them from a distance. And some people are afraid of it, but you'd be surprised. A lot of people, once they have that initial relationship established, and you can show that they can trust you, they're going to trust you. And I must act as like I'm your boots on the ground, right?
So what is in that package? What you said, you mentioned $10,000 one-time setup fee. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's going to vary for the property. That's probably on average. Yeah, and you're asking what's included in there?
I think we went through the list, but is that's actually a good question. So are you charging those, like the photography, back to them, or is that all included in the package? Like you assume those costs within your 10 grand?
Yeah, great question. I do have a few partners on this venture, actually, some people that I bought properties with, and the company's called Low Country STR. But what it is essentially is there is a few setup costs. No, we're not charging for photography. We're not charging for any of that kind of stuff. We kind of act as consultants, right? So we're setting up the Airbnb and VRBO page to pay out to the client, right? We're not holding any money in escrow or anything like that. So there will be we'll set them up for, like, we use Guesty, Price Labs, for the dynamic pricing, and the auto pay for the cleaning system all goes to them. So yeah, it's 99% all inclusive on that setup fee, minus the few subscriptions for the tech stack that are needed.
And
Okay.
that 10,000 is separate from the commission that you're making helping the buyer purchase?
It is. And,
Okay.
I'm not money grabbing or anything like that. It's just the reality of this system too is you got to think traditional rental management companies, their rule of thumb, their checkbox is having every property rented that week, right? They don't really care how much it's rented for, so on. So they sacrifice price point a little bit on top of their 20% commission. So you're really looking at the end of the day, maybe 10% drop in price point, 20% commission, about 30% swing in overall annual revenue. So the value is absolutely there. And this is something where I will kind of say, hey, I'm part of this company, Low Country STR. My partners would be happy to talk to you. So I'm not the one that's reaching in their pockets right after the closing. And it really is a very beneficial system to my seller or to my clients. And then I'll kind of pass it off a little bit, but I'm the one on the back end that's, doing some of the setup, so on and so forth, and some of the consultation as well, because we will be in touch with these people, in the first 6 months of them operating if they have any questions. But it's not all me. I do pass it off a little bit, and the value's there for sure.
Totally. It's funny listening to you. Like I made a note of this earlier when you were talking about the economics of Hilton Head, and all about what's going on with like the economy and the city and the developments and the amenities. And then also like, when we ask questions, I hear you kick back into the which you've said a million times, I'm sure. It's cool because I can pretend to be an investor on a call with you and you're telling me about the amenities of and why I should invest there. And then, Allie asked the question about the package and you turn it back on like you've said this a lot.
Ingrained. It's ingrained. Once you got something that works and that's a big differentiator too. Just even you start from a client's perspective, that doesn't understand this stuff as much. And you start talking about tech stacks and dynamic pricing. A lot of it goes over their head, but they're like, holy crap, this guy knows what he's talking about. Right.
Well, yeah, it's like, what you're talking about, but also it's like eye-opening to how much they don't know because they might be thinking, hey, it's really easy to manage this myself until they realize all of the little pieces that they hadn't even considered. And then they're like, what else am I not thinking of? Oh, crap, I have to hire Brandon. But you mentioned before we hit record, you mentioned like one of your favorite things was putting together the deal. And I assume this is a part of it, but can you talk us through like what that means to you when you help people put together the deal?
Yeah. There's a book on it written, one or two. It's an art, right? And with that being said, it's personal, even on these investment transactions, right? You're dealing always with two sides, even if you're representing just one, let's say the investment buyer. Well, the seller could be somebody that has had that property in their family for 20 years. It's very personal to them. And what I do is, first and foremost, I'm sniffing out the deals. I'm sniffing out the best deals, but I'm going to call that agent before I even call my client on something that I think is interesting, right? So I'm going to get the backstory on why are they selling? What do they think the true rental potential is? What do they think that, how much are they using it? So I'm putting together all of these facts, right? From the seller's side, and I'm representing the buyer. Same thing, vice versa, but for this example. And then I'll call my client and say, here's what's going on, laying it all out in all these degrees, and really kind of painting the picture for what is a mutually beneficial outcome. Yes, for my client first, but also for the seller in order to get the deal done. So I'm almost like a detective when it comes to putting these deals together. All right, what are the seller's motivations? Like I'm not the kind of guy where I am not afraid to ask the seller's agent questions that they probably shouldn't be answering. And you know what? Half the time they answer the questions. And it gives me a lot of insight on, I'm all the time when we had COVID down here and multiple offers, for example, and there's 5 offers on a property. I think I lost like 2 or 3 in a row, and I sat down with my attorney and figured out some strategies. But what I would do was, let's say there's 5 offers on the table. I'd come in and, give me cash offers, right? Oh, okay. Maybe I'll write it cash and forego the financing contingency, or, what's it going to, so I'm asking the uncomfortable questions for my client on the other end and piecing together what it's going to take to get it done, because you're negotiating not only with the seller, but with your buyer, for this example, to say, hey, if you want to get this property, I know what's going on, right? And I know what it's going to take, whether it's escalation clauses in there, whether it's writing up as a cash offer and financing it on the back end, foregoing your financing contingency. So just really getting creative with what is it going to take to get the deal done? What is my client willing to do in the back of my head while I'm asking those questions to the seller's agent to paint the picture, to put it together and, figure out what's the best solution for everybody.
I love that so much because so many agents are scared of asking a question that the other agent is not supposed to answer. But it's not on you to stop the question. Like I do the same thing where it's on them. They should know the rules of what they can and cannot say, of what their seller told them is okay to say and is not okay to say. So ask all the questions you want. The filter is with them. So I love that. I love that so much because so many agents are too
100%.
scared.
And that's the biggest thing, for listeners out there right now is, in putting these deals together, you almost need to be talking to the other side just as much as you're talking to your client, right? And you need to be digging out those details, and you can't be afraid, because you got to think in the back of your head, the more they say, the better you're serving your client. And, you're not asking anything inappropriate or illegal. You're just picking away at what's it going to take to get the deal done realistically, right? And if they answer the question, great. If they don't, they don't. And then, you tell your client that. But I would almost say for listeners, over communicate with the other party and don't under communicate.
And using silence is so big when you call the other agents. So I make, this is the one time where like I make a couple phone calls, right? Where I'm calling the sellers, the listing agent. And using silence is so powerful. Just ask a question and stay quiet. So many times they'll just ramble and they will start digging themselves. They'll start telling all of the secrets of what it will take you and your buyer in order to get that offer accepted. And so many agents would rather just send a quick text. But when that listing agent has to send a text back, there's more thought to that. It's not impromptu. It's not on the fly where they have to safeguard their, knowledge. So they will just let them talk, and then
Let them
therefore you can
talk.
get your offer accepted. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I love this too, because we actually, even on episodes prior, we haven't really dug into like the art of the sale. And like, again, this is multiple times now where I'm listening to you and I'm like, this guy knows sales. Like whether or not you were trained in it, you are like a natural salesperson. And it's one of those things where it's like, so you're asking all the questions that other people don't want to ask, but you're probably also like game planning the best outcome for your client, knowing their goals, knowing the seller situation. And this is an assumption, but like what I would used to do is like, I would, based on all of the same things that you've done where you collect the data and you think through the best case scenarios, and then it's like getting the other agent on board. And then you have to turn on your sales again, because you're not just selling, your client, and not selling, obviously it's in their best interest and all that stuff for sure, but you also have to get that other agent on board if there is one between you and the seller. And it's like, okay, this is great for your client, this is great in my client, 1 2 3 break, let's do it. Like, I don't, do you know what I'm talking about?
For sure. And I love the line, if I can get my client to X, would your client do Y? Right. And it's always like, if I can get, and, sometimes that's a little bit of a gray area. So you want to be careful with it, but, because you don't want to speak for your client without talking to them, but you will get the answer from the other party of what it's going to take to get it done. And it's funny that you said earlier, backtracking real quick, the sales experience, sales does come pretty naturally to me. Very unorthodox in my approach. I was a business management entrepreneurship major, kind of threw myself into the fire, and, it was feast or famine, and kind of self-taught. So these are all things that I've just learned through the past 4 or 5 years of committing 100% and putting a lot of time, energy, and effort into what works. And this stuff does work.
That's the if I were to, would you statement works in all aspects of life. And that
It really does.
we're all taught that in our community as well. It it works. So, okay, you mentioned that this is a lot of this was self-learning, the sales process. How else, what other resources did you, like, what other books did you read or podcasts did you listen to? How else did you learn to be so good?
That's a good question. Nothing specific in regards to books or, courses or things like that. I think my background as a business management major did help, and this is a little unorthodox answer as well, but I was very involved in social life in college and Greek life, and, planning philanthropy music festivals to, all of these big things where dealing with people, right? At the end of the day, sales is people, right? And just knowing what makes people tick, what doesn't make people tick. I do think I'm a little, luckily, naturally gifted in that aspect of, reading people, feeling them out. But at the end of the day, I think for somebody that wants to get better at sales, they need to understand people better and how people react to certain things. And, another thing in there that is very important with the sales process that I've learned from, educational backgrounds, but also through doing, is managing expectations throughout the process, right? If you can properly manage your expectations of your clients, you're going to be fine. If you can properly manage the expectations of the seller on the other side, same thing, right? So learning to find what make people tick, right? And I find that people buy or sell or transact for 2 reasons. Fear of loss and greed are the two biggest things where people will, make a move on something. If somebody's afraid they're going to lose it, or if they're greedy, both of those things normally kick in. Understanding, what makes not only your client tick, but also the other party tick, you're uncovering that on that discovery on that front end. And, I think, to answer the question, it's being very engaged with people in the last 5-10 years of my life and understanding how social aspects work, whether it's communicating over where we're going to go grab a drink or whether it's putting together a $2 million deal, people work the same. And once you kind of understand how that is and what, everybody's different, everybody has their own heartstrings, but once you know how to identify somebody's heartstrings, what they really care about, what their MO is, it's easier to put something in motion that you want to happen.
Totally. And this speaks to me. And I think it's funny when Allie is like asking, where else did you learn this? And you're like, dude, nah, I'm just a natural. In other words.
I didn't want to say that.
No, no, dude, it's cool. It's a safe space. But I was thinking about it. So this is I live I'm my roommate, my husband, is a hyper introvert, not a people person, all that stuff. And he's always telling me, he's like, Shelby, you're so good at sales. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I've never taken a sales class, all this stuff. But what I found, those questions like Allie just asked you are actually sometimes the toughest to answer, because when I look at you and you're natural sales, like I see it, you know what I mean? And then when people are like, well, how did you learn that? And you're like, dude, I don't know. Like, and you gave a really eloquent answer. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Well, because you're a sales dude.
Yeah. I always got an answer. I always got an answer.
Yeah. Okay. So this you get the lead. Probably another reason is you're probably really charismatic. We don't know you that well, but put you in a room of people, you probably leave with 5 clients or opportunities for business or whatever. And then from that point, I'm assuming you just go into the question mode and to test and test until you see oh, that's a trigger. And then you're like, is that, I don't know. What do you got? Stuff like, is that what you do?
Yeah. I mean, when I'm talking with new clients, they don't know this, but I'm interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing me. And where I'm at with kind of my book of business and how much I have going on and, finally started bringing a little bit of a team together here. I only am one person right now, right? And I've got a lot of people, past clients, current clients, prospects, new leads coming in. And if I really do sense that they're not as serious as I think they are on first impression, or they're going to be can kickers, sorry, but I've got a lot of people to serve. And if you're not serious, I'm going to move on to the next person because I got a lot of people to talk to, deal with, and there's only one of me, and I'm trying to stay mentally sane at the same time. Right. So it's very much so. Yeah, I'm charismatic. I want my clients to succeed, right? That's the other thing that I think a lot of people and agents, they just want to close the deal. This is a small island too. I mean, 3.5 million visitors a year, but 40,000 residents. Reputation is everything. And if my clients don't win, I don't win, because if they're unhappy with whatever, so I'm always making sure that I understand what their goals are and I understand what their definition of success is with this transaction. And I'm not going to sell them something, even if they want to buy it, if I know deep down it's not going to work. Right. And that's just who I am. I want them to win. And, sometimes I'll put a big deal together and the buyer, my client's like, congratulations. And I'm like, no. You tell me congratulations when we're closed and you're happy and, all of that kind of stuff. But, if you don't win, I don't win.
Yo, real quick, this podcast is not free. Cost of admission is sharing with a buddy who'd benefit or throwing it on your Instagram story. Tag us, we'll reshare that shit.
You also mentioned managing expectations, and that's everything in this business, and I feel like probably everything in sales in general. What are some of those conversations? What do those conversations look like when you're originally, your first conversation? You mentioned a little bit of it as you're interviewing them as well, but then as a process goes on and the transaction continues, what do those other conversations look like where you continue to manage expectations with your clients?
Yeah, let's just take an example of going through a process of a transaction, right? There's a lot of things that come up, and a lot of time I see agents or other people in the business, kind of beating around the bush and telling clients what they want to hear and figuring it out in the background. I'm just going to tell people how it is. I'm going to tell them what's going on, and I'm going to be a very high level of authentic, because if I'm not, And that comes back to me, first of all, that makes me look bad. But second, and more importantly, it really just lays the future of what's going to happen next. So I'm very big into, this is where we are in the transaction. Here's the roadmap. This is the next stop. And, if something comes up that maybe they don't want to hear, well, we're in real estate. Stuff happens all the time, and that's why there's as much money to be made in this industry as there is, because there's that hits the fan a lot, right? And I just am a big believer in shooting people straight, right? Not beating around the bush. This is what's going on. This is what's going to be the outcome of it. And really trying, again, I'm back to my storytelling and stuff, but paint the picture. Hey, if we go this route, this is what could happen. If we go this route, this is what could happen. So just not putting a decision or recommending something for a client, but really laying out what could be the repercussions of that decision down the road.
And that is exactly what a lot of agents are scared of doing. Sometimes it comes from just not having enough experience, where they might not know, if we go route A, this will happen directly after, but they might not know what happens after that. So, and even if they do, they might lay out like, hey, here we could do option A, or we could do option B, but then they say it more as fact. And then there is no advice element to that conversation. So, and that's what clients need. Clients don't just need somebody to lay out the facts for them. They could use anybody for that. That doesn't make somebody that specific realtor stand out. So how do you add in your advice? So like, hey, if we do this, if we go this route, if we take this offer, this is what it could look like. If we take that offer, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how do you add your specific advice? Like, I suggest we do this, or I suggest we do that, or do you not?
No, I absolutely do. And I think a lot of agents and for people listening, we forget sometimes, and I did at the beginning, that we're the experts, right? People are looking at us for advice, and we're ones that need to advise and encourage certain outcomes. Like, I have an example right now of a seller of mine that is trying to have 3 or 4 dominoes fall, and we're fighting over $15,000 on a $2 million offer. And for me, it's taking them out of their emotional state in the moment and really laying out why. Why are you selling this? What is going to be the outcome of it from here? And, one of my coaches says, and I love it, you got to bonk these clients on the head sometimes, right? And if they don't agree with you, they don't agree with you, but you got to hold your ground, and you can't be afraid to hold your ground. And it's easier to hold your ground when you remind yourself that you are the expert, right? You're not, of course it's the client's decision on what they want to do, if they want to go up in an offer or this or that. But you can have a firm stance on which direction to go. And I find when you have a firm stance, what supports that more than anything else is a third-party story, right? Third-party story, third-party story, third-party story. Because, you're the expert, but you have so much experience that you've dealt with something like this before. People's brains think in stories. And it's just something that if I don't have a story, I'll go to my broker's office and ask him a story about something. And I'll say, my broker just had this happen last year, so on and so forth. So, really standing your ground and being able to stand that ground by relying on stories, third parties.
Yeah, I also love, Allie and I are just giggling in the background because we actually have like a note sheet that we like go back and forth on, like, and we're like, oh my God, he's such a sales master. Because the third party story, that's like classic. You know what I mean? Like, that's and listeners, if you don't know that, it is what he just said is freaking gold. And gosh, there's so many different little things. One of the things when you guys were talking about, helping recommending, because listen, most people, this is my favorite quote lately. It's, people want to be led. And if you're wondering who's in charge, it's you, and you're doing a job.
I love that. I love that. Yeah,
I heard that
awesome.
and I was like, yes, oh my gosh. Because it's so true. And then, agents sometimes will be like, well, I can't tell them what to do. It's their idea. And you don't have to be as direct as this is what you need to do, because that's not going to work. But if you use your paint the picture thing and you say, okay, here are the 2 courses of action that we're talking through. Course of action 1, and then you paint the picture of all of the different pain points and, things that they'll actually go through and how they'll feel if they choose that outcome. And then the course of action 2, the picture is painted much differently. They will be able to choose your recommendation from their own free will without even realize that you just freaking got them.
Yeah,
Yes.
you paint the picture that's true, but, our job is to have the best interest of our client.
Mhm.
And we probably know the best interest based on what can happen. And of course, it's their decision, but, we can paint that picture to make them, think in certain ways and more or less guide them in the right direction.
Right, and it all goes back to that. Like, none of this is, like, malicious, and
No,
maybe the right direction is this isn't the property for you, and this is, like, I know based on X, Y, and Z that occurred, we can do better. Maybe it is not closing the deal, you know what I mean? But still,
yep,
based on the experience that you have and the absolute reps that you have in the industry, a lot of agents after they have that are able to forecast and especially since you already talked about it, you already called the listing agent, you understand the pain points of the seller, you understand what they need. You know what I mean? So anyway, I just went in a
100%.
whole circle, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Allie, do you want to talk more about sales stuff or do we want to ask about the team, the future, how we're looking?
Let's go into teams. Yes.
Okay, Brandon, you mentioned it. You're bringing your brother on, and last time we spoke, I know that you have an assistant. So what is the vision for the team look like?
Yeah, I find once you get to about 40 deals as a year as an individual agent, you start to hit point of diminishing returns. So last summer, a little over a year ago, I brought on an administrative assistant, pay him very well, and it has completely 180'd my business into taking those non-revenue generating activities that I did pass them on to her so I can focus on more revenue generating activities, prospecting, so on and so forth. Even at that point now, and obviously as my brother coming on board, he's had experience in real estate prior, already had his license, interned at the same firm. And it's just very, very rewarding to have built the system, right? The admin, what happens, so on and so forth. And don't get me wrong, it's a lot of hard work putting, that together and training somebody up in it. But then, I really look at it as three forms of prospects that he's going to bring in. First, people that I've already have relationships with that are either too far out in the distance for me to focus on right now, or, are a little stale, so on and so forth. I'll pass them to him, see if he can drum them up, see if he can continue to nurture them. The other part is three. The other part is new leads. Sometimes when a new lead comes in within a certain price point, right? Boom, immediately to him. And the third is him drumming up his own leads, right? Showing him how to drum up those leads. So right now, he's early in the stages, and it's just nice for me to take some people out of my database and give them to him and know they're still serviced first and foremost, because I have way too many people. But second, it's, we're documenting every little thing we do from, creating your LinkedIn bio to this, to that, to that. So we're really putting together a system for continual growth here in the future. And it's nice that he's my brother. So right now, I've been growing exponentially in sales over the first 4 or 5 years. At some point, if you want to continue scaling in that degree, you need to add leverage either in the form of technology or in HR, more people, right? So now it's at the point where I know I needed to add somebody else, and it worked out that it was my brother to plug him in to continue that exponential sale. And we will continue to grow over the years and create a real estate empire, but you got to still one step at a time, right?
Yeah. So what were some of those first duties, responsibilities, roles that you passed on to your assistant?
Contract coordination. Once the contract's signed, it goes in her department. I'm still there every step of the way. She's handling all the, the little stuff here and there that needs to get done, but is not necessarily getting me paid. I'm focusing on the new business, the deals that are going under contract, the listing appointments. And it's also really nice for solo agents out there when you do get to the point to add an admin, to have somebody else to bounce your ideas off of, right? And I advise anybody that brings an admin on to open your book completely. Don't hold anything back from them. Make it sure it's the right person that you feel comfortable opening everything up to them. Because if it's the right person, they are absolutely in your corner and they will help you grow. And you need to give them the power to take control, right? And let go, which is hard for a lot of us sometimes.
Yes. So many people take too long to let go when they could have continued their growth. But instead, they continue to grow, but just not at the point where they could have had they started leveraging out. How did you find somebody that would be able to do more assistant work, but also was able to provide you the feedback that you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, was looking for?
I went in and actually did online ads. And at first I went to try to, siphon somebody else in the market that has experience, so on and so forth. But then I kind of thought, I kind of want somebody with a background in real estate, but also a fresh perspective and not already stuck in a rut. So, I had like 60 applicants for the job because I offered a lot of money for it. I mean, I'm paying her a lot of money and she's worth every single penny. But it was somebody that had a real estate background, not specifically in this market, not necessarily in residential, more in commercial, but understood the foundation of administrative activities, right? Answering phones, replying to emails, etiquette. Somebody that is, not going to get married and again, no more kids, right? So somebody that just, I can't beat her to work. She loves what she does. So for me, it's overpaying for the right person, right? When you know you need it. It is, opening the books up to them. But before you do that, you need to make sure that they're the right person. How do you do that? Take your time. You don't rush it. You're getting into bed with somebody to a degree and, it 3 steps backwards before, you even get something that is right. And you can go way back if you don't get the right person. So you got to be picky with who you're going to bring on board and you got to take your time. And again, my advice is, when you're at the point where you need to add another agent. And if you're at the point, you probably have the funds to pay them because it's worth it.
Can I ask how much you're paying them?
Yeah, 75,000 with bonuses as an admin, maybe more.
Yeah.
It'll probably be 75 to 100.
That's great. So then you advertise, because a lot of agents are scared of advertising, first of all, committing to that amount, right? Because they just think of the whole annual fee and that scares them instead of there's a whole trial period. You can have it in the contract where you're going to work with them for a month at a time, month to month, similar to tenants. So your strategy was like put that amount out there, then hopefully like only the best of the best will apply, being that I'm overpaying them.
Yeah, and I had to weed through it. Just comes down to the experience, right? And somebody that fits my culture. It's all about culture. It's all about everybody being on the same wavelength and the same goals, so on and so forth. But yeah, I put the carrot out there and it's even funny. I had an agent local here. He's like, oh, my admin reached out and said, you're hiring at this price. What that, but it's in order to get the best, you need to pay them. And it's just funny the way it worked out. But, I'm probably going to give her a raise at the end of the year because, I'm already doubled my revenue from 2022 and 2023. And it just started to be August here now. So I could not have done that by myself. There's no way. Even my admin's like, I have no idea how you did it by yourself before me. I was like, well, I was losing my mind is how I was doing it. And I wasn't doing as much of it. Right. So I think as people grow, don't be afraid to scale. And I probably held on another 6 months longer than I should have. And it's tough at first, right? But at the end of the day, if it is the right person and you take your time, there's no question you need to add that one. And again, once you get to about that 35, 40 deals per year is where I started to see the point of diminishing returns.
Apple listeners, this short pause is to ask you for a review. Here's how to do it. Back out of the specific episode, go to the page where you see all the episodes, scroll down, keep scrolling. Perfect. Now tap those 5 stars. Thank you so much. Back to the show.
I want to go tactical on still this topic of hiring out. Where did you post the descriptions for the job? And what questions did you ask once you have them on an interview? What question or what would you say is like the most important 1 or 2 questions in order to see if they're a good fit for you?
Yeah, I blasted it out on all of the hiring things as well as my local board real estate down here. Actually, it came through ZipRecruiter was the one. So ZipRecruiter, I did do LinkedIn. I did Indeed were the 3 ones I did online. And, I did several rounds of interviews prior to even going to the interviews. Something I can say is very important. I'll send them disc tests, right? There's a certain disc that you're looking for with these hires. So, from resumes and the disc tests, I weeded out 50 of the 60 applicants. Then I did phone interviews and really trying to get at their why. Why do they want this job? Why do they feel like they could be of a value? Why are you even considering doing this if you were in a little different? So getting down to their why. And, I find when you find people's whys, you can really find their true intentions. And that was phone interviews, so on like that. And then I narrowed it down, I think, to 4 people and had 3 rounds of in-person interviews. I knocked 2 out in the first one and I had 2 more interviews twice with the same people. And I just remember going through kind of their vision. Like I asked, what's your vision for my business? Right? Put the ball in their court, and ask those uncomfortable questions and see how they respond to being uncomfortable. While that's not really the job description, I wanted somebody that could think on their feet. I wanted somebody that, knew their purpose and their role, not necessarily job description, but in assisting me getting to my goals. So I think it goes back to the why, it goes back to the disc text, and it's really laying the red carpet out for them. What do you want? What are you looking for? Right. And that really ultimately solved who it was going to be. I had a good feeling from it from the start, even after the disc test, because it's crazy. Those disc tests, if you're looking for a specific type of hire, you can nail it with those things. And it did. I probably didn't even have to do the other rounds of interviews. But again, I was patient. I didn't just hire anybody. And I spent time going through, and the big question is, what's your vision? How do you see your role here? How do you, where do you see yourself paint the picture, right? Again, back to the sales mentality, I guess, that I have, but it worked out. And it was just very, very, very awesome thing that happened to my business. And I don't know what I would do without her.
Dude, that's so cool. I hope she listens to this and she's like, I love him too. This is the best thing ever.
She's my work
She's
mom.
like, yeah, I'm going to get a raise.
Keeps me on track.
I love
Slaps
it.
me when I'm out of place, right?
No, it's so good. That's Allie and I actually talk about this a lot. It's like, there's we call it the minion versus the brain. And I think you did a lot of good questions to identify which that is. And what I mean by that is, like, there's two types of people generally who are going to apply for a position, right? There's the minions, which is, the potential to absolutely crush whatever you tell them to do. There's a checklist, they'll follow it. There's guidance, they'll do it. But then the step up is the brain. It's like, are you able to give them a vision and they can grab it and do all of the critical thinking, required to take an idea and implement it and troubleshoot along the way and adjust and think on their feet. And it's like, those are two totally different people. And they both are wonderful, in a different place and time. There's a certain price tag that goes along with each.
Yep.
Yeah. And not that either is wrong. Of course, there's like a different place for everyone. But yeah, we talk about the disc too. This is all very, Brandon, it's okay. Anyway.
Am I
Brandon,
boring you?
No, you're not boring us. This is like, it's just similar conversations that we have. So anyway, it is. It's a echo, dude. But any parting words of wisdom or things that we did not cover today that you would like to share, Brandon?
Allie and Chubby, I think you guys did a great job. You guys are awesome, kicking butt, taking names, love the energy, and giving a lot of value out there. As far as parting words go, I would say for agents that are earlier in the process right now, don't be discouraged. Keep chipping away at your craft. Keep looking for that niche in your market that has not been necessarily put out there yet. And what is it? Every market's different, right? Maybe if you're in the mountains, I got a guy down here right now that is getting into real estate that I know, a friend of mine, and he's focusing on hunting property and large properties with streams and stuff because he loves outdoors, right? That's a great niche. Find your niche, be patient, and keep pushing that snowball up the hill because it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, it's crazy. A lot of people, famous, I say it a lot, but the famous quote, you underestimate what you can get done in 1 year, but you overestimate what you can get in 1 year, underestimate what you can get done in 5 years. And it's so true. Like, if you commit to the craft and you work your butt off and you commit to this, amazing things will happen. But you always got to be treating people right. You always got to be putting your clients first. And you got to be giving 110% effort. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
Love that. Yes. So our wrap-up questions that we ask all the guests. What is your favorite app or tool that you use in your personal life or your business life? And it doesn't have to be complex or anything crazy.
Yeah, app tool. I would say this is business, but I love Landglide, right? Looking at properties and being able to find who owns it, what they pay for it, what's the tax record on it. I use that more than a lot of other things. And most of my stuff is real estate on my phone. But Landglide, if you don't know what it is, it's like $60 a year, guys. And it's a great resource when you're identifying potential listings, when you're looking at investment properties, and you drive by a house that has grass that's too high and you're like, what's going on with this? I wonder who owns it, right? Doing some snooping.
Good deal. Actually, I haven't heard of that one.
You gotta check it out. It's really good.
Okay, I will. Okay, Brandon, what events are you going to in person this year, if any?
Yeah, I'm going to. So I was lucky enough to get selected as 30 under 30 realtor this year. So I'm going to the 30 under 30 mastermind in Seattle this September. And I think there's like a broker board or some other conference that day before. I know I will need to get down to a conference with you guys, Shelby. But besides that, I'm going to Italy this fall, so I don't really have too much else time-wise. But yeah, I'm doing the 30 under 30 mastermind thing.
And similar to Landglide, have you heard of the app called Backflip?
I've not heard of Backflip. Tell me more.
Okay, I think it might do exactly of what you're saying already, but for free. It's like a newer company. They were at one of the conferences that I went to, Real Estate Wealth Builders this year. They were one of the sponsors there. And, you have to like go around and talk to the sponsors, but they seem to offer the same thing for free where you can just look up. I don't know what exactly you else use it for aside from like the owner name and like the tax records, but check it out. Backflip.
Backflip. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. That's awesome. Thanks, Allie.
Yeah. So how can we help you in your business aside from, if anybody's listening to this and you're looking into investing in Hilton Head area, reach out to Brandon. Aside from referrals, how else can we help you?
I just love talking with people in this space and continuing to build relationships, long-term relationships. So maybe letting me know when some of the next mastermind groups you guys have coming up would be very beneficial to me, and maybe introduce me to some people in your sphere, not necessarily clients, just people that could help me grow because I'm always looking to get better. And, so maybe plugging me in with some people in some other parts of the country that have some different perspectives that you think we'd get along well with.
Perfect. We can do that. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Instagram at my name, Brandon.Greenplate, BrandonGreenplate. You can also check out my website, findhiltonheadrealestate.com. In the most recent article or Realtor Magazine, 30 under 30, and pretty much all over the internet. I'll be starting a YouTube channel here soon. And there's just a lot of stuff out there that you can connect me with, Instagram, Facebook, and I'm really big on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm always dropping a lot of knowledge on LinkedIn as well.
Dude, perfect. Since you're starting YouTube, I have another connection for you too. Our buddy Sam Caudle has been on this podcast too, but he has a YouTube channel called Living in Tampa, and it is blown up. And he's really good at using it to generate, not just clients who are already obsessed with him because they've watched his face so much, but also like a brand in his local area. So I'll connect you with him.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, dude. Got you. And I didn't say this. Allie and I didn't say this once the whole episode, but Brandon also brought us a golden nugget, which is the short-term rental model. It's like a calculator. It has all the costs you consider when you're running numbers on a short-term rental, either for yourself or for a client. So make sure you go to theagentgoldmine.com and go to the freaking place where you apply to get your nugget, and it'll be great.
Yeah, it's a great spreadsheet that just calculates cash flow on any type of property, and it also helps calculate depreciation. And it's just kind of my gold standard for me running numbers and quickly putting things together and having it on file. So hopefully your listeners enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. I hope they do. And you better go on there. If you're thinking about working with investors, go on there. Yeah. Like we give this away for free. So, and if you ever have any questions that you want to hit me or Shelby up with, we are Allie the Agent on Instagram and The Shelby Show on Instagram. So hit us up there. If you haven't already, if you're listening to this episode and you found any value in this, which I know that you did, rate and review, share this with a friend, because be a bro and share this show. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening, dude. If you want the golden nugget that this guest provided, see the show notes or just go straight to theagentgoldmine.com. That's where we keep all our resources for you. Till next time.